Naomi Rivers, a decorated officer in the U.S. Navy, stepped into the bustling airport terminal early one Monday morning. At 35, she carried a calm confidence, her years of service etched into her poised demeanor. Her sharply pressed Navy uniform reflected the pride of over a decade of service, and her badges told a story of dedication and sacrifice. Today, however, her heart carried the weight of a significant mission, representing her fleet at an international conference on naval cooperation. It was a task of great responsibility and honor. The airport was alive with activity. Announcements echoed through the halls as travelers hurried to their gates. Naomi moved efficiently through the crowd, her military training evident in her precise movements. But as she approached the security checkpoint, an unease settled over her. She reminded herself to focus on the task ahead. Yet, her instincts were right. Her journey would not go as planned. As Naomi placed her bag on the conveyor belt, two TSA officers approached her. Officer Langston, a tall man with a scrutinizing gaze, and Officer Carter, a middle-aged woman with a sharp, unsmiling expression, blocked her path. "Put your bag through the scanner," Langston barked. His tone was unnecessarily harsh. Naomi complied, placing her belongings on the belt and walking through the metal detector. The machine beeped faintly, but she was confident there was nothing amiss. "Step aside," Langston ordered, motioning for Officer Carter to join him. "We've been instructed to inspect the luggage of a suspicious passenger." Naomi felt her stomach churn. "Suspicious? What exactly did I do?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Officer Carter smirked, her eyes scanning Naomi with barely concealed disdain. "Just cooperate," she said coldly, "unless you'd like to make this more difficult for yourself." With no choice, Naomi unzipped her bag. The officers rummaged through her belongings, their movements careless and disrespectful. Among her possessions was a small box containing her Navy insignia, a symbol of her years of service and the sacrifices she had made for her country. Langston picked up the insignia, turning it over in his hand with a mocking sneer. "Well, isn't this cute?" he said loudly, drawing the attention of nearby passengers. Without a second thought, he tossed it into a nearby trash can. Naomi froze. The insignia wasn't just a piece of metal, it represented her honor, loyalty, and countless sacrifices. Her jaw tightened, but she refused to let her anger show. Instead, she retrieved her belongings with quiet dignity. "Is there anything wrong with my luggage?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "If not, I believe I'm free to go." Langston shrugged dismissively. "You're free," he said, waving her off like an inconvenience. Naomi straightened her back, lifted her chin, and walked away. She felt the judgmental gazes of onlookers but held her head high. This was not the first time she had faced prejudice, and she doubted it would be the last. Still, the sting of the encounter lingered as she made her way to the gate. Naomi boarded the plane, her sharp uniform and composed demeanor drawing attention. She took her seat in the first-class cabin, a privilege she had earned through years of hard work. Yet, as she settled in, she felt the weight of unwelcome gazes. A middle-aged man a few seats away leaned toward his companion, his voice loud enough for Naomi to hear. "What's she doing here?" he muttered. "Doesn't look like someone who could afford first class." The woman beside him smirked. "Probably one of those special assistance programs. She doesn't belong here." Naomi kept her gaze forward, refusing to engage. Moments later, the lead flight attendant, Sheila, approached, dressed impeccably. Her demeanor exuded professionalism, but her expression was cold. "Ma'am, I need to check your ticket again," Sheila said, her voice polite but distant. Naomi frowned. "I already presented it when I boarded. There seems to be a mix-up," Sheila insisted, holding out her hand. Reluctantly, Naomi handed over her ticket. Sheila glanced at it briefly before tearing it in half. "I'm sorry, but this seat isn't assigned to you. You'll need to move to economy class." Naomi stared at the torn ticket in disbelief. "I purchased this seat under my name," she said, her voice steady but firm. "I have every right to sit here." Sheila's lips curled into a condescending smile. "If you have any complaints, feel free to contact customer service after we land. For now, please move." The words stung. "Someone like you." Naomi understood the underlying message. Without a word, she gathered her belongings and moved to economy. The snickers and murmurs from the first-class cabin followed her, but she held her composure. As Naomi settled into her cramped seat, she took a deep breath. I'm not here for them, she reminded herself. I have a bigger purpose. Naomi Rivers sat silently in the cramped economy seat, her gaze fixed on the window as the plane taxied. She forced herself to focus on the mission ahead, willing the sting of earlier prejudices to fade. However, a nagging feeling of unease lingered, growing stronger with every passing moment. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted abruptly when a loud crash echoed from the first-class section. Naomi turned to see a tall, hooded man rising from his seat. His movements were deliberate, his presence dominating the narrow aisle. The man reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a small, black device, his sharp eyes scanning the rows of passengers. Stay quiet, he commanded, his voice slicing through the cabin like a blade. Do what I say, and no one gets hurt. The initial murmurs of confusion gave way to silence. Panic rippled through the cabin as passengers froze, their expressions shifting from surprise to fear. Naomi's heart raced as she analyzed the situation. The man, later identifying himself as Eric Hayes, was clearly agitated but not entirely in control. His hand trembled slightly, betraying his uncertainty. This is not a joke, Eric continued, waving the device for all to see. If anyone tries to play hero, no one will leave this plane alive. Naomi's instincts sharpened. As a Navy officer, she was no stranger to high-pressure situations. But this wasn't a controlled battlefield. Here, the stakes were higher. Civilians, families, and children were involved. She quickly noticed Eric's gaze flicker toward another man at the back of the plane. A broad-shouldered figure with a hardened expression. The two exchanged a brief glance, and Naomi's suspicions were confirmed. Eric wasn't acting alone. As Eric barked orders for passengers to surrender their valuables, Naomi's thoughts raced. Fear was palpable in the cabin, with passengers reluctantly handing over wallets, phones, and jewelry. Naomi's military training reminded her to stay calm and observe. She focused on Eric's accomplice, who remained seated but radiated an air of control. He was the real threat, Naomi realized, the puppet master pulling the strings. Eric's path brought him closer to Naomi. He stopped in front of her, his cold eyes narrowing. You, he said, his voice heavy with suspicion. What are you hiding? Naomi met his gaze steadily. I don't have anything valuable, she replied, her voice calm but firm. Eric sneered. You must think you're special, he muttered before moving on. Naomi exhaled slowly, gripping the armrests of her seat. The immediate danger had passed, but the situation was escalating. Time was running out to act. Naomi scanned the cabin, her sharp mind working to formulate a plan. The passengers around her were paralyzed by fear, their faces pale and their movements hesitant. But amid the chaos, Naomi spotted potential allies. Seated near the window was Henry Watts, a retired Army veteran with a calm, resolute expression. Despite his age, Henry's posture was upright, and his eyes were sharp, indicating years of experience. A few rows ahead, a young woman named Megan clutched her handbag tightly, though fear flickered in her eyes. Her hands steadied as she whispered comforting words to a crying child nearby. Naomi leaned toward Henry, her voice low. I think we can stop this, she said, but I'll need your help. Henry nodded without hesitation. Tell me what you need. Naomi quickly outlined her plan. Using the plane's intercom system as a distraction, she would confront Eric and his accomplice, Gregory, while Henry and Megan worked to disarm them. The success of the plan hinged on precise timing and coordination. Naomi knew it was risky, but inaction was not an option. Naomi rose from her seat, drawing a collective gasp from the passengers around her. Eric, she called out, her voice steady and authoritative. Eric turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. What do you want? He demanded, clearly irritated. I want to talk, Naomi said, taking a small step forward. This doesn't have to end in disaster. Eric's lips curled into a sneer. And who are you to talk to me like that? You think you're some kind of hero? Naomi didn't flinch. I'm someone who knows you don't want to hurt anyone, she replied. This isn't who you are. Eric faltered, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But before Naomi could continue, Gregory rose from his seat at the back of the plane. The room seemed to grow colder as he approached, his imposing figure and sharp features exuding menace. What's going on here? Gregory barked, his tone laced with disdain. He glared at Eric before turning his attention to Naomi. You think you can control this situation? Naomi stood her ground. I'm trying to stop anyone from getting hurt, she said, including you. Gregory's expression hardened. Enough of this, he growled, stepping closer. But as he did, Naomi saw an opportunity. She glanced at Henry and Megan, signaling them to prepare. Eric, Naomi said, her tone soft but firm. You don't have to follow him. You can make a different choice. Gregory's face darkened with rage. Shut up, he roared, lunging at Naomi with a knife. But Naomi was ready. She sidestepped his attack and pressed a button on the intercom panel, emitting a loud, piercing sound that filled the cabin. Henry and Megan sprang into action. Henry tackled Eric, wrestling him to the ground and securing the device in his hoodie. Megan joined in, using a seatbelt to restrain him. Meanwhile, Naomi disarmed Gregory with swift precision, using her military training to pin him against the floor. The cabin erupted into chaos as passengers, emboldened by Naomi's bravery, rushed to help. Together, they subdued both hijackers, their collective courage transforming fear into triumph. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted from terror to relief as the passengers realized the immediate threat had been neutralized. Naomi inspected the device Henry had secured, confirming it was a fake bomb. Still, she instructed everyone to remain vigilant until the plane landed safely. As the plane touched down, the passengers erupted into applause. Tears streamed down the faces of some, while others hugged their loved ones tightly. For the first time in hours, the cabin was filled with hope. When the doors opened, a team of security officers boarded, swiftly taking Eric and Gregory into custody. Eric appeared remorseful, his head bowed in defeat. Gregory, however, maintained his defiance, his eyes burning with unrepentant anger. Passengers and crew members approached Naomi, their gratitude evident. Sheila, the flight attendant who had earlier dismissed Naomi, tearfully apologized. You didn't just save us, she said. You gave us the courage to stand together. The hijackers' trial drew national attention, with Naomi testifying as the lead witness. Her composure and detailed account ensured justice was served. Gregory received a lengthy prison sentence, while Eric, who expressed genuine remorse and cooperated with authorities, received a reduced sentence. Naomi's actions inspired a wave of public admiration. Media outlets hailed her as a hero. But Naomi remained humble. This wasn't just about me, she told reporters. It was about everyone on that flight coming together. In the weeks following the incident, Naomi found herself reflecting on the events of that day. She was invited to speak at schools, community centers, and military events, sharing her story of courage and unity. Her message was clear. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act despite it. And when we stand together, we can overcome anything. The passengers of that fateful flight stayed connected, their bond forged in adversity. They often recounted how Naomi's leadership had sparked their collective bravery, transforming strangers into a united force. Naomi knew the experience would stay with her forever. It wasn't just a story of survival, it was a testament to the power of resilience, unity, and hope. And as she looked toward the future, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that even in the darkest moments, the light of humanity could shine through. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey of courage, resilience, and unity. Naomi's story reminds us that even in the face of overwhelming fear, one act of bravery can inspire a wave of strength and solidarity. It's a testament to how ordinary people can come together to overcome extraordinary challenges. What would you do if faced with a moment where courage was the only choice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales that shine a light on the strength of the human spirit. Together, we can inspire hope, spread compassion, and remind the world that no act of kindness or bravery is ever too small. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.